Now, when you make a decision, I'm talking a definite decision, an I'm all in decision, a no ifs, ands, or buts decision, an absolute, resolute, no matter what decision. There's where your power lies as a human being. For all we have infinite potential and free will, we've been gifted this human form of life. What a gift it is, right? To be born a human being. What a great gift it is to even hear the truth. And what a greater gift it is to pursue it. Enlightenment. What a great gift. And when we value this gift, we'll choose to rise. Because that's where, as human beings, our power lies. There are those who choose to elevate their frequency, their spiritual buoyancy, and cherish their life energy, rise above sea level, into the open air, the fresh air, the beautiful light, right? And there are others who choose either unwittingly or knowingly or unknowingly to remain bottom feeders. And one's not better than the other. The one who chooses to rise above sea level is not better than the bottom feeder. But if we're honest, there is a clear difference. And that difference lies in the fact that those who choose to remain bottom feeders are... I just saw a mouse. What's up, buddy? Distracted me for a second there. But they dwell in negativity, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Whereas, and honestly, they're constantly seeking energy externally. They don't cherish that essence, the life force within. They don't realize their inner light, like those who've chose to elevate their frequency. And they're temperate in energy, in their consumption of energy, because they generate and they produce energy. They seek to give it because they know intuitively that what they put out comes back to them. And they don't do it with that intention. They do it because every action is that of compassion. They're animated by an intelligence, an energy, a pure energy, because they're temperate in their consumption of energy. And as such, creation feeds a pure and potent energy into them, a different kind of energy than the energy that the bottom feeders are dwelling in, that we can call and label negativity. And as such, when you're temperate in your consumption of energy and you seek to give energy, that not only comes full circle, comes back to you, and you don't, like I said, you don't do it with that intention, because every action is animated by a love that knows no condition. It's a love that says, I need, want, and expect nothing from you. There's nothing to get out of you. There's nothing to get out of life, right? Because each moment arises from the generous heart of creation that has given us this energy that we call life, that is beating our heart. Personality's not doing that. But still, some of us have the tendency to create a structure, a self-image in the mind, a personal me. And when we do that, this was revealed to me as a man through prolonged fasting and being temperate in the consumption of energy and simply sitting and being alert in the present moment, completely surrendered to the immediate environment. And dwelling in the infinite silence, in that space of consciousness where we're simply present and alive and appreciative of the present moment. There is where our power lies. This was revealed to me as a man, that some of us, with that, mouse again, that internal structure of a personal me, choose to condition God's love, that pure, potent, unconditional energy, and say, I choose to love this person and this person and this person and not that person. And who are we to do that? Who are we to discriminate between loving this and that? Because as a matter of fact, we're all arising as the same collective energy, as humanity. It's the same source of life within you and me. So when you choose to love that body and not this body, as if they're fundamentally a separate energy, what you're doing is you're creating a separate boundary for yourself, as if you're separate from the world around you. And thus, there's a sense of separation from the rest of creation, and instead of connection. And as such, there's a void that one who does that feels the need to fill, because they don't feel that clear, open connection with the higher power. They haven't surrendered themselves to that power, to that energy, to the generous heart of creation as it's pouring forth and giving them energy. They haven't cherished that energy within themselves, like I said, whether knowingly or unknowingly. A lot of people are just conforming to society and the world at large without necessarily knowing what they're doing. Like it says in the Bible, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. So it's not necessarily their fault. And that's part of humility, is understanding that as humans, we share a basic human fallibility, right? Nobody's perfect. We all share the same spectrum of emotions, and there's that flux of life. But when we're centered and rooted and grounded in the presence, in the present, we're less apt to be swayed by the tide, the flux of life, because we're impartial. And that impartiality comes not from a want to be perceived as a man of nobility, or to be perceived in a certain way, in a certain light, because it really stems from an inner knowing and a knowledge that everything really is the same fundamental essence and energy. And it's not just something that we understand conceptually. It's something that we feel viscerally. We feel deeply because we've opened our heart. Because we've allowed that energy to rise, our spiritual buoyancy and frequency to rise by realizing this profound energy, this light within us. And thus we cherish it. And as such, it rises within us, as does our awareness. And thus, there's little to no suffering And when we're at peace, when we're a joyful, happy, and blissful human being, that's the best thing we can do for the world and anybody around us. To bring that energy. To be that energy. It's not necessarily something that we do. Of course, we can act consciously with that energy in seeking to uplift others and humanity. But it's really more something that we be, something that we become. Not thinking that we're the one. Because everything is one. We're one with everything. We're one with the world. And really all suffering comes from that feeling of separation. That mental creation of a separate personal me, a separate personal identity. That is a separate boundary, a separate energy. Not connected with the rest of humanity. Want to feel that clear, open connection with spirit, or whatever you want to call it. And it starts with opening our heart, the sense of receptivity and openness, and ultimately surrender. That's where our true power is. That's where it lies as a human being, is in surrender. Surrender to a greater will, something beyond the personal. Of course, we can understand that, hey, yes, of course we have that personal aspect of ourselves. We have it. We aren't it. It's like the body. It's like the mind. We have body. We have mind. We're not the body and mind. We have that personal aspect part of ourselves. But we're fundamentally not it. And when we understand that, we can compartmentalize it and we can use it accordingly to act consciously and not take it too seriously. We can act lightheartedly and act with a sense of absolute non-resistance to life with no attachment and aversions. It's one of the biggest lessons in life, right? To learn to live joyfully with things that we don't like. No aversion. No dislikes. And, the personality, hey, it might have its dislikes, might have its likes, but they're no longer viewed as mine. We don't own them. So they're not taken as seriously. So there's that sense of lightheartedness and thus non-resistance. And that's the purest and most potent, powerful form of energy that we can bring to the world around us, that we can contribute and uplift, that we can be, to live and act consciously, joyfully. That's the greatest gift we can bring as a human being. To live with simultaneous groundedness and openness and transcendence. The full spectrum, fully integrated human being, right? That groundedness, that earth element, the root chakra, our origin, and then that sense of connectedness, that visceral, deep feeling to perceive the world clearly. Open-heartedness, light-heartedness, and also transcendence, to understand transcendent reality. That there's something beyond this 3D, three-dimensional earthly reality that we can harmonically attune to through spiritual alignment, through harmonic attunement, through raising our frequency, understanding things in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. To understand the secrets of the universe, to go within, to find that clear, open connection to our soul awareness, to something that is timeless and formless. To realize that through certain practice, whether it be making that definite decision, everyday meditation, indefinite seeming attention, prolonged fasting, whatever it is, these ancient disciplines, these practices, when we make a definite decision to make those a part of our everyday life, not just something we sample, right? Not just something we taste a little here and there, and it's on and off, and it's kind of in a flux, and we're kind of not all in, we're not serious. Well, guess what? The progress is not going to be as noticeable. You're not going to feel it as much. It's not going to be as noticeable to you or others around you if you're kind of half-hearted. You're not definite and absolute about it. And that sage-like, that saintly resolve really comes from a sense of surrender. A sense of surrender to a higher power. Surrender the personal will. Realizing that there's something beyond this. There's something beyond the five senses. Something beyond the perceptible creation. Those moments of transcendence are found in that surrender, found in that silence, found in this moment. Like the notes of music. As soon as they arise, as soon as we hear them, they're already passing. It's the same with this moment. The moment as it arises is already in the past. And thus, we're in a continuous present, a continuous presence, a continuous peace that can never be taken away from us because we're invulnerable. We're immune to the so-called threats and negativity of the world. Darkness, because we have that light within us. Because we dwell in that sense of lightheartedness, not the negativity, the bottom feeders. Because we live with meaning. We live a life that's fulfilling. And what is the most meaningful thing we can do? One who has elevated their frequency above sea level into the light, to the open air, the air element, the heart, right? The most meaningful thing that one can do, we can call them fishers of men, fisher of men. To cast out and help one of those bottom feeders rise. To help as many of them rise as they can. That's living a life with meaning. And we can only do that by becoming higher energy, on a higher frequency through cherishing our life energy. We can be that inspiration for humanity, for the world around us. Not by what we have, not by driving this car, or having a mansion, or even necessarily what we do, but what we become. Because what we become will naturally animate what we do. We won't have to try to, because we're surrendered. We simply allow. We've released those inner blockages and resistances to the all-encompassing presence, to the profound energy and light within us. And thus, it animates our intelligence in a way where we don't have to try. There's no forcing. Life becomes effortless because we're in that space, peace, and non-resistance. And there's no self-condemnation. There's an all-encompassing forgiveness. We don't see that we make mistakes because we see every so-called failure as an opportunity. And we see challenges as an opportunity because we're surrendered. And in that space of surrender, in that space of lightheartedness, when we open up the heart, we naturally are in a space of unconditional serenity. I hear my heartbeat as I'm staring with you. I'm not staring at you. And it's a great thing. Simply put your hand on your heart. Remind yourself, wow, my heart's beating. I'm breathing. It's doing itself. The body breathes itself. My person is not doing that. It's impersonal, just like thoughts, right? Thoughts are impersonal. That's one of the most liberating things we can learn about ourselves, about the human mind, is that it's impersonal. It's simply happening. I'm not doing that. Thoughts are arising in consciousness. They're doing that by themselves. And when we realize that, wow, thoughts are impersonal, you not only take them seriously, but we liberate so much energy within us. Because there's not that clinging. There's not that clinginess to the thought process. We see it as a spontaneous happening. Something that's ongoing, because we're identified with the constant, the present, the presence. Not the thought process. And thus we can impartially observe it as a loving witness, just like everything around us. I'm the loving witness to this thing called life. Thoughts are simply energy, just like everything around. We can simply be the witness. No judgments. Who am I to judge? It's one of my favorites. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Nobody's perfect. That doesn't mean we can't strive to be. Fundamentally, creation is evolution and is perfection. And we're a piece of creation. But as a person, we're not perfect. But there is that part of us that is absolute perfection. It's beyond a person. It's beyond personal meanness. It's founded in the silence, in the surrender, the presence, in a life that's spontaneous. It's absence of excess analysis. A life that's humble, where there's no personal meanness that's animating the intelligence. What's more humble than a human being that has no self-image, that's completely surrendered, here and now is loving witness, that is that spontaneous piece of creation as it's unfolding. And that silence, and that presence, it's limitless. And that sense of surrender to a higher power, to something beyond a personal will, personal meanness, beyond the mouse. Keeps poking his head out. There's that awareness. You can be aware of everything going on around you without it affecting you. You can remain spotless and scratchless. The world can't leave its mark upon you because you're at peace with yourself and thus everything else. God bless, I guess. That's all I have to say today. It's all Spirit wants to express. So I leave it on this. God bless.